Attention, please. We are going to start our new session sometime very soon. Please settle down. And the name of the session is Meet the Journal Editors. And sir, some big names are there on screen, if you can see.
আমি এখন আছি নিদা জার্নি এডিটে এটার পর যখন প্রেজেন্ট করতে আসবে প্রেজেন্টেশন স্লাইডটা অন করে দেব
দেখি না ডান ডান
পরে গিয়ে
এখানে মিট দ্য জার্নাল এডিটর আমরা উঠে দেব মিট দ্য জার্নাল এডিটর সাউন্ড উঠে দেব
পরেরটা
প্রেজেন্টেশন বলে যান
আচ্ছা প্রেজেন্টেশন মোড এটার কি ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ডটা চেঞ্জ করতে পারবা ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ড আছে এখানে সার্চ দ্য ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ড এখানে ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ড লিখে সার্চ দাও পেয়ে যাবো আপনার হয়েছে 16 অনেক তো ড্রতে দিয়ে দেখো তো
ছিলই না এই যে ফুলের আগেই ছিল
পরের সাথে হ্যাঁ এটা থাক পরেরটাই চলে যান ম্যাম হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ দিয়ে দেন হ্যাঁ হয়ে গেছে কিন্তু এখানে এখানে ব্ল্যাক করতে হবে এগুলাকে এটাকে ব্ল্যাক করে পরের সাইডে এটা ঠিক আছে এটা থাক
কোনটাকে ব্ল্যাক করতে হবে
পরের লাইনে এটা এগুলো দেখা যাচ্ছে না এগুলোকে ব্ল্যাক করে দেন সব কন্ট্রোল এ দেন কন্ট্রোল এ না এখানে বাইরে ক্লিক করে
কন্ট্রোল এ দে
হ্যাঁ এবার ব্ল্যাক
এখন সবগুলো ইনসার্ট
ইনসার্ট না রাইট ক্লিক আচ্ছা হোমে যান এবার এখানে যান এই যে দিস
হ্যাঁ
হ্যাঁ ব্ল্যাক
ব্ল্যাক
এই যে গুড
পরেরটা তো সেম কন্ট্রোল এ হ্যাঁ এটা জাস্ট ক্লিক করে দাও
জাস্ট ক্লিক
ইয়েস
গুড
পরেরটাতে
কন্ট্রোল এ জাস্ট ক্লিক করলেই হবে
এর উপর ক্লিক কর হ্যাঁ শেষ বাকি
শেষ কন্ট্রোল এ গুড পারফেক্ট
প্রেজেন্টেশন শেষ
মাইক শুরু করো দ্যাটস ফাইন
weight of this slide is 100 megabytes that's why it's not scrolling পিপিটি
এটা না আগে ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ড
সবাইকে চুপ থাকতে বলতে হবে এটা কি বলবো
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I hope you all had a refreshing lunch and some time to network and connect with fellow participants. We now move forward with a very special session, the Meet the Journal Editor session. This is a unique opportunity for all participants to engage directly with the editors of leading international journal and gain valuable insights into the publication process and discuss strategies to enhance the digital quality and impact of the research. To formally commence this session, I am pleased to cordially invite Professor Dr. Muhammad Mamun Habib, General Chair of ICEB TM 2025 and Editor-in-Chief of several international index journals, including Independent Business Review, IBR, Taylor and Francis, Springer Nature, to have us with on stage. We are also honored to have with us today our esteemed editors, Professor Dr. Raja Rasia, University of Malaya, Malaysia, Professor Dr. Jonathan Liu, International Business School, Manchester, United Kingdom, Professor Dr. Maniam Kalyanan, University of Nottingham, Malaysia. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a warm round of applause to welcome our distinguished editors. I now request Professor Dr. Muhammad Mamun Habib, our session chair, to kindly take the floor and preside over today's session. Requesting everyone to stay quiet and pay attention to the session, please.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Okay, welcome to this session. This is Professor Dr. Mamun Habib. I'd like to request everyone, this is very important, one of the session of our conference event. You can understand, if you can see the many conferences, but this kind of session is very unique session because you are here today for the paper presentation and now we are discussing the Meet the Editors. So, I'd like to request all of the participants, please join with us and you will get the chance to ask a question. So that's the most important thing, the Q&A with the editors. So before going to the Q&A, we just like to give us a few discussion on the journal selection. We'd like to talk about the what is our editorial perspective observation. I like to start in that way that you just think that first of all, when you submit any paper, there is a possibility that your paper will be rejected. And what is our observation that when you submit the paper as an author, if the paper is rejected, then you are highly demotivated. And that is the one thing what we said here, that paper rejection is the first step of the paper acceptance. So this is our mindset, we have to clear this one. I like to share with you, one of my PhD scholar, he submitted his paper in the Q1 journal. And that journal, the first step, the accepted with the major correction. Second step, there is a 3 reviewer give the 3 types of comments. And when the second time, it still is accepted mood. And then we already did the review based on the reviewer comments. And third time when you submit it, it's almost the 1 year, 6 months. I'm not sure what happened. This after the third time that journal paper was rejected. And that time, my PhD scholar, he just finished his PhD. You can understand his motivation factor. And I still recall that when I talked to him, he said that, sir, it's not possible anymore to publish this kind of journal. I requested him, why not? We can again go to the submission. Why not we can accept the reviewer comments in a positive sense. We can review our paper, then we can again submit the other journal, no problem. We can do that. And you know that paper already submitted the one journal and is in the publication stage. So look very carefully. This kind of acceptance level is very important when you're planning for the journal paper. that maybe your paper could be the rejected, but you have to think the reviewer comments. It is not the necessary all the comments will be incorporated, but at least you have to give the attention to the reviewer comments. There are a few more things. Reviewer comments, we already mentioned this one. Just keep in mind, there is no shortcut in research paper publication. And you have to spend time on this one. And there is no perfection in the research paper. It is a way that how can you improve the paper, continuous improvement. And I can share with you, if you see my profile, there are a lot of papers, you will be very excited. But do you know that how many times my paper was rejected? I know that. So that is a part of this our profile enrichment. So when your paper is rejected, I again request you, keep in mind there is no shortcut path to publish the paper in this kind of Q1, Q2 journal. There is some things, I don't want to talk too much because we have a good panelist here today, we can discuss about this one. Plagiarism is a research crime. We like to use this term, the plagiarism is a research crime. We have to take care of this issue, but problem is that, 20 years before the plagiarism issue and nowadays plagiarism issue is different. Now it is very easy to track that what happened from here, you are copy and paste. And another issue is that our AI generative tools. So AI index you can find out. So that is it means that you have to do your original work. Your original concept, idea must be there. And you have to do this one paraphrasing. Without the paraphrasing, you cannot go to the publication process. I like to again, there is another key issue, the academic writing. If you get enough time, then we can discuss later on. But again, once again, we remind you that if you like to become a good researcher, keep in mind, there is no financial fund for the research. It is a global recognition, self-accomplishment. Your findings will be published all over the world. People will use it, your references. They will use your citation. That is a different concept. So that is how we call it the researcher. And when you are the researcher, you are not for the only one country, you are the global researcher, global platform. You will get the notification on the international level. Today we are meeting here, you can see the Malaysian that approved professor, UK professor, and you can say, well, I'm the Bangladeshi professor, but we are in the same platform. The reason is that global recognition. So now I like to give the floor to our panelists. What you observed, our editorial, some observation, and now you can share your opinion.
Yes. Good afternoon. Okay. Just to give you a bit of background, I've been the editor-in-chief for the International Journal of Business Performance Management. It's technically called a one-star paper that is recognized by the British Academy, sorry, the Association of Business Schools. Okay, they come up with a listing. And I hope to share with you some of the do's and don'ts, and in particular, the expectations that you will have with regard to getting published. But the truth of the matter is, if you wish to be in academia, then you have to publish, okay? And the publishing is not so much a game, but as a means to share knowledge, okay? So all I would say to you is, it's a tough road. Don't give up, okay? Don't give up so easily, okay? And stay in tune. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I serve in few journals in the editorial board as well as the review panel the last 20 years or so. I think publication for academics is not something nice to do, but necessary, right? It's not necessity, but necessity to do. Because, many universities look at it in terms of your promotion. As even PhD scholars, you need to publish. So the point is, we have to publish, but how do we publish ethically, right? From the selection of the journal, contents of the paper, the data that we use, the way we write our papers, right? Going through, as Prof. Habib mentioned, going through number of rounds of circles of corrections, revisions, not giving up. And I always tell my students, in fact happened to me 20 years ago, when the first paper got published in a Scopus Q1 journal, that happiness, the wow factor was there. There was a motivation. You get one paper published, second paper, third paper, that's how you do. And in some universities, even in Malaysia, they do provide some incentives. publish in a Q1 paper, you get about $1,000 incentive. Sometimes I remember during my PhD time, that was also a motivation to earn some extra money. You publish papers, you get extra money, right? Another thing is also, going for conference. I like to travel. I go to conference and then eventually work on the paper and getting it published. So a lot of motivation, determination, commitment, and ethical behavior to start with in terms of publication. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll provide you two sides of the whole thing. The first one, I think there's a tendency for lots of students not to really check the scope of that journal and then to browse around to see what else is necessary for them before they prepare the paper. In fact, the paper should be prepared after they look at all this. Otherwise, I have situations where students of mine bring across papers to me that suggest that they actually submitted somewhere else. They haven't even changed a lot of things inside there that are prerequisites for you to understand the journal before you send. These are the submissions that get desk rejected. But you do have to know that I was 2 times chief editor of journals, international journals, once editor, and I no longer hold this because I have just got no time for it. But in the process that I do also know that DEX review rejections can be the fault of the journal itself, not the person who submitted. In fact, I remember, since I've had so many PhD students, some of them have great papers where they were rejected. To them, I give this motivation. I'm not sure if you all know these Nobel laureates. Ronald Coase and, of course, Paul Krugman. I remember the year I finished my PhD reading the Scandinavian Journal of Economics. 3 of them were interviewed. Did you have any problems publishing your papers? All 3 had not got their Nobel Prize yet. All 3 said they've had papers rejected. All 3. No, sorry, 2 and 1 no. The one who said his papers were never rejected, Ronald Coase, famous for his article, The Nature of the Firm, in a journal called Economica, 1937. To me, it's still an incredible paper. He mentions that he only submitted articles when editors called him to submit. And he never had any substantive revisions too. He had something like 8 pieces of work, all of them going back to what he originally wrote, The Nature of the Firm, why firms exist. Now, he had something like 300 citations when he won his Nobel Prize, 1991. Now you go and check, it's over 80,000. This is Ronald Coase from Chicago, largely a lawyer. Now the second one is Paul Krugman. Now Paul Krugman himself replied, as I read your letter, I have a paper rejected on my right-hand side. But he responded by saying, the referees didn't understand what he was saying. That's the new geography he introduced, rejected by, he mentioned, American Economic Review, Quarterly Journal of Economics, and Economic. He mentioned the 3. But interestingly, he turned this economic geography journal to a famous journal after that because he got his Nobel Prize for the new geography. This is Paul Krugman. Now, I shall not speak about the other, but I always motivated people, if you really passionately believe you've contributed something, don't lose heart. Remember that people who have the attempts to reject it, most of the time it's very difficult to reject the order, what is considered the norm. You are now contesting the norm. That to me is seminal, but it's very difficult to get that across. Have patience, build your strength and work on it. So I will say the same thing to you. Majority of you may be just one publication, but some of you really believe that the passionate feeling you have over something need to be recognized, need to be realized. So I encourage them, please proceed with that.
Now let's move to our next one. Before that, we like to remind you again that our we are agreed that we'll take a lot of questions from the audiences today. So we'd like to open the floor now, then we'll come back again because there is some few discussion on the journal selection process. So now we'd like to open the floor. Would you please raise your hand? Those interested to ask a question, please raise your hand. This live is going on in Facebook, YouTube and LinkedIn. So now you can understand that your question will be there. Please.
Sir, thank you so much. I have a question to Professor Dr. Jonathan Liu. Usually, this is my experience that once we submit a paper in Inner Science journals, it takes huge time to get the paper accepted. That is, the publication process is very slow. Even when I see that you are the editor-in-chief of one of the journals of Inner Science publications, and the name of the journal is International Journal of Performance Management. Even I see in your journal, there are 78 papers in the forthcoming articles. So if it takes lots of time to get the paper published, I think the data, the findings, and lots of things become obsolete. So my question is, sir, why the publication process is so slow in Inner Science journal? Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. Very good question. I think on average, okay, I think this is before the pandemic, we were having around a turnaround time from the time you submit to the paper to a initial decision would take around three to 4 months, okay? But since the pandemic, okay, the time has taken much longer. It's just as long as probably even 9 months, okay? And that's not because we are getting lazy, but because the number of submissions have increased tremendously, okay? And especially during the pandemic cycle, for around 3 years, most academics stayed at home and did whatever they do at home. So they ended up writing papers, okay? And also, it's now part and parcel of promotion that if you don't have papers published, that's what's happening, okay? I think the key thing for you to then also think about is not when the paper is actually physically published, but when it is actually released, because you have your ISBN numbers, you have all your other notifications in there. And most of the good journals will tell you when the paper was submitted and when it was actually released, okay? And we do that to actually highlight when the publication actually comes out. I've said to a lot of young academics, let's say you submit the paper in January 2024, but your paper is not going to be actually physically released until January 2025, okay? You might be thinking, oh, that's terrible. Actually, the beauty is you can have 2 bites to the cherry. You tell your line managers or your heads of department, I have a paper accepted. The paper was accepted, let's say, January 2024, okay? But you don't share the physical copy until January 2025, okay? So in some ways, that is one of the mitigating things you can have. But I hope that what we have done in the International Journal of Business Management is that we have actually now increased the number of issues, okay? When I took over the journal, it was created by Professor Alan Steiner. They were running 2 issues a year, and each issue had about 8 papers, between 6 to 8 papers. So that was like 12 papers a year, okay? Today, we're running 8 issues, okay, with about 8 papers per issue. So my maths is not very good, but that is at least a quarterfold of it, okay? So all I can say is that it is tough, okay? I hear what you say, but it is a ABS ranked journal, okay? So I hope that answers your question.
I like to add the one thing here. If you ask about the indoor science, but if you check very carefully the Springer Nature or Taylor Francis, it will take more time than indoor science. And am I right? Yes. And then Taylor Francis, I'm involved with the Taylor Francis book series editor. So even the book proposal submission process, it took that 1 year to accept this one, just book proposal. Now we have to circulate, we have to collect the paper, review, again we have to submit this one, then it will be approved by the Taylor Francis, then we will notify the authors. So it is the regular process to do this one. So when you come to the inside of this one, then you can understand that it is a very valid process. That's why I make sure this one rigorous review process, because there will be no questions. Even sometimes it happens that there are three reviewers. One reviewer is rejected, another is accepted, another is the major accepted, minor accepted. So there is some conflicting issues are there. So we have to resolve these kind of issues, and then we have to come up with the decision whether we have to accept it or not. And sometimes it happens that the book series editor or book editor or the journal editor-in-chief, they will take the decision, this kind of conflicting issue. So I think it's a very normal process that you have to be patient. Next question, please.
Good afternoon. This is Dr. Shafayat from Independent University. So my question is, how editors these days tackling these AI-generated paper issues? Thank you.
I like to come to this one. So there is the ones. If you look very carefully, but this very interesting thing is that Emerald has updated their ethics guidelines very recently, last month. Analyzing or describing the data results from the author inputted prompts into a generative AI tool, LLM, is not ethical. This is the latest. The last month, Emerald did this one. So now I'd like to give the floor to our panelists. They can share their opinion, please.
I just wanted to mention that sometimes we think people in government, people in running the country use politics in ways where the masses may not like. I'm sorry if you take that sort of a position. It's the same whether academics are running it. It's the same whether those guys who are running journals do it. Now, I was once in a panel discussion with 3 other respected journal chief editors, including Strategic Management Journal. I'm mentioning that one. I completely disagreed with them as if these guys take straight line, completely non-biased ways of looking at things without giving special attention to certain people or other people and so on. But sometimes, of course, sometimes a paper is delayed because the referee is chosen, took time and then say, no, they cannot do it. That happens very often. Delays happen that way. But sometimes it also is the case that they give priority to certain. I was in one of them, Tier 1 journal, to say that, in fact, I've left, but I'm in the advisory board now. So I think you have to take this as given. Just hope that those things don't happen. It's just like you are trying to predict, well, this set of guys who are good academics, they publish so much that now they've joined the cabinet. Surely they'll do well. However much you predict, it need not happen. So many random variables are involved, including the fact that they did well doesn't translate into the fact that they will actually act, not just being honest, but also work hard to see that they're holding the custodians of elements that require social responsibility. It need not happen. So that's what I will say, more than just saying that things can happen to shorten the refereeing process, or for that matter to give you a fair review. An example I can give you, increasingly journals will send your manuscript back and say, it doesn't fit your journal, the journal concerned. Other journals may be better. Those days I remember, I was told, even when I was a student, send to journals, at least you get feedback. You can improve, you can revise. Many a time now there's no such feedback at all. And sometimes it even gives you the impression that this journal makes the case and says that this body doesn't fall into their journal. And yet, these guys then publish in better journals after that, more prolific. I've seen that, including from my students. So these are things you have to build for yourself, I would say.
Okay, very quick response. In fact, many good journals now, when you submit a paper, number of boxes you have to tick. One of the boxes is, have you used AI to write this paper? When you tick the box, and they have a system in a built-in system to check the certain percentage, right? If it across that percentage, they will actually check with you where you get data from and things like that. If it's too high, then you'll get desk rejection. So the advice is use it, be ethical, and they will check. They have a system to check.
I think I can speak from in the sciences, okay? What we do is every paper that is submitted goes through an initial screening. And it's during that screening, which is purely administrative, that paper that is submitted is put into a package called Turnitin. And it also now links up with ChatGPT 5. So how do we fight people that are writing with AI? We are using AI to find out if they've been using AI. Okay, it sounds silly, but the fact of the matter is, if you do that, you will get listed. Okay, they may not tell you you are on the blacklist, but you're on the blacklist. Okay, and I think the important thing is how and when you use any of the artificial intelligence to support yourself. Okay, I think yesterday in one of my talks I've said that it's inevitable, you will use it, but then be smart about that. Okay, if you actually use it to do the analysis for you, right, you need to then do the interpretation. And if you then actually explain this was put into NVivo and everything was coded and done, okay, then you leave and then you add it into your supporting letter to the editor. Tell the editor, I've used this AI thing, which I haven't written into the paper, okay, but you can also write it into your methodology. It's about being open, transparent, and ethical, i.e., you're doing it to the best of your ability. Okay? I hope that answers your question.
Let me, Professor Mahmood, just say one thing, because I'm in the editorial series, Springer Nature editorial series. We've been briefed on the fact that we are supposed to denote by looking at Turnitin tests. In fact, there are different versions of it. And you can also take out in the process of testing it references, tables, provided you acknowledge the table. But if the table comes from another author and the publisher is different, you must seek permission. You must seek permission and acknowledge all this right from the beginning. What Springer journals don't do, which is what I was told, if they recognize, as what Professor Jonathan Liu noted, they would not disclose it to the paper submitter that they have actually gone through this and identified you to be blacklisted. They won't tell you that. That's one. Second, if they turn down a paper because your paper has exceeded a certain sort of limit and is non-repairable in their mind, they also will not tell you that that's what they did. Instead, they will give you a rejection. So you have to be careful on all this.
Thank you so much. Now, before going to take your again question, there is another small presentation. Before that, I'd like to inform you that did you notice in our conference proceedings, the abstract proceedings and full paper proceedings online and hard copy, that we have this conference we have some of the affiliated journals, and this conference we have also some of the affiliated book chapters, even from Taylor Francis and then Springer Nature. I'd like to add the one thing. There is some misconception, so you have to know this one. Some of them they're thinking that conference paper will be published directly to the journal. Just keep in mind the issue of the what you said earlier, that plagiarism issue. As we are publishing the conference proceedings with the ISBN number, it is a unique one. Done. Now this conference proceedings will be provided to the journal, those are interested. Based on the area, based on the tracks, they can select the few papers. And we are giving them full authority that they can communicate with the authors, or maybe they can communicate through us. And then they will ask you to provide the extended papers or the revised version of this conference paper for the journal. And what we understood that at least you have to keep in mind, you have to change the 50 to 60% should be changed. And now you have to revise the again question of the paraphrasing and other issues will be there. So it means that your conference paper will not be published directly to the journal. So it should be the revised, it should be the extended version. We don't want to talk too much about this issue, but keep in mind, we are going to submit our conference proceedings to the different journal based on the area scope. They can communicate with you, they can contact with you. Then you can think how you can submit the extended version, revised version paper to the respective journal or maybe the book chapter. And we have the one independent business review. We have the own School of Business Entrepreneurship journal. So maybe also you can think if you have interested about the journal, you can submit the paper, extended paper to this journal. Now, before going to the Q&A, we are giving you the rough idea about the strategic journal selection and submission readiness. I'd like to request all participants of the conference. It is very important for you because we are thinking about this one. How could you select what kind of journal and what would be the criteria to select the journal? So if you look very carefully, you can see this one. Strategic journal selection process. You have to identify your potential journals. We can ensure you that, keep in mind when you like to think about the journal potential selection, first of all you have to check your areas, their thematic areas, aim, objectives, scope of the paper. It is very important. We notice that many times that as an editor-in-chief, even when I was the editor-in-chief of the Scopus Senior Journal, I noticed that I'm getting a lot of papers. If it is not within the scope of the journal, and we don't know why they are submitting this kind of thing. So this is very important, the scope of the journal. So this is one of the best thinking before submission of the paper to the journal. And then assess the journal fit. This is very simple. You have to check who are the editor-in-chief, who are the editorial board members. We are assuming that editorial board members should be the multi-countries, multi-continents, multi-culture. Suppose this is one journal, all editorial board members from the USA, it will not be accepted at all. The issue is that what you said, that the multicultural, multi-continents, and this is very important. And then you have to check that there are previous issues, how many papers they are publishing as the periodical journal, so you have to check this one. Even you can check the quality of the journal, earlier journal paper. So it is a way that you have to assess that journal fit, whether you can think or not. Then evaluate the practical factors, and so I like to show you something there. You can check this one. Yeah. If you look very carefully, key journal matrix, it is one of the parameters you have to think about the journal, whether you can submit the paper or not. You can see the impact factor, you can see the site score, you can see the ABS, you can see the SNIP. Basically, that nowadays is available. If you check journal, they can find it. And we have the Schema Go. Schema Go is providing all kind of information. So maybe you can try at first before submission, because sometimes you submitted your paper, but you don't know. The issue is that the paper already submitted is already repository. Now you are going to submit this journal in another your paper in another journal. Then we like to see the plagiarism by turning the software, and we notice that what happened, 99%, 98%, something wrong. So that's why it's better to have to check before submission the journal. And keep in mind, when you submit your paper in any journal or any conference, you should submit this same paper for another journal and conference. The issue will be there, what I said earlier, the representative issue will be there. So now, I like to open the floor to our panelists. There is a few more things I think you can come up from the panelists. Please.
Yeah, okay. Right, thank you. Okay. It's me trying to dominate the microphone, okay? Ask my wife, she'll agree with you. Okay? I think the core thing is, I can share with you some stats, okay? 65% of the papers that are desk rejected is pretty common sense ones. For example, we say the journal does not accept any papers that are not empirical based or empirical base, and you submit a paper that says the total opposite, what do you think the editor will do? Okay, they will just reject it. Okay, then they will tell you it is out of scope or it doesn't fit. The second reason, or the most popular reason why the papers are rejected is they have not, the authors haven't read the requirements. Okay, so if we say it has to be double space, times 24, whatever, 12, and you totally ignore that, again, what will the editors do? In fact, quite a lot of the times, I'm asked by the admin team, should we reject this paper because they haven't complied with the requirements? And my answer normally, 90% of the time, is reject that and tell them you don't even make the cut, okay? What is also then important is these three things here, okay? What is the contribution of your paper? Where is the rigor in methodology? And then also the theory, okay? I concede back to you, Dr. Maniam.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. I think, yeah, key points mentioned. As young researchers, young lecturers, young academics, we are so excited about submitting papers, but please talk to your supervisors or some seniors. You know the quality of your paper, right? So you do not want to be getting rejected all the time, because if papers are rejected too many times, yes, I'm motivated to resubmit, but you also can get a bit demotivated eventually. The emotional side will also comes in. So as mentioned, look for the journal. Like the university where I come from, we only recognize ABDC ranked journals. So as a professor, I must submit and publish ABDC A or B journals. C is not recognized for my category of job. So when I do paper with my students, I tell them to see, normally we start with ABDC, and most ABDC papers are ABS ranked and Scopus ranked. So you have to be careful in selecting which journal you want to go to, and then within the journal, as Prof. Rajarase mentioned, please spend time reading the journal scope, the scope, empirical data, theory building, all these are important. Simple example to give, in HR, there are many journals, right? There are HRM journals, HRD journals, right? If you publish your HRM paper in HRD journal, they'll reject, because it is not management but development. So be careful with your scope or journal. And then as mentioned also, please read the the author's guidelines. We have to fulfill everything, font size, single spacing. And I also have rejected number of papers because they don't fulfill the word count. We put clearly not more than say 8,000 words, and you submit a paper 12,000 words, it get rejected. It might be a good paper, yeah, might be a very good paper. As mentioned, 65% articles rejected without reading the entire journal, because you don't fulfill the basic requirements. And your paper is actually a good paper. It's unfortunate, right? It's unfortunate. So please read. And one more point is also abstract. As an editor, normally we start reading it from your abstract. Spelling error, it is not clear, it is not smart enough, you get rejected. So don't rush, do all these things properly. And one more advice is, do not submit to few journals, same paper to few journals. There's a big mistake many guys are doing now, because journals have they know this paper submitted in few journals, all will reject you. So you can only submit one journal at any point in time. If paper get rejected, then you can submit to another journal. So these are some key points to take note, right? It's a game, but it takes time. All right, thank you.
I just wanted to add a few points, not disagreeing with my colleagues here, is that I think I prefer ABS ranking over the QS. QS to me doesn't make any sense. I was a professor at Maastricht, we only use ABS. This thing not where I am now. But coming back to this point here, remember that even though the journal says it's double-blind refereeing, a referee most of the time will know who submitted the paper. They just will have to put the names, and in fact most of the papers sent to me by the big journal, they'll have the names there for me to see if I want comfortable in refereeing. You just put the names, and without the names you can put the paper's title. Either it would have been a working paper, discussion paper, or it was presented somewhere. And more often than not, many people tend to copy and paste, thinking that government reports would not be taken there. The book that I mentioned just now, I had to rewrite the work of 11 of the authors because the Tinnitin was just too high. These guys just copied and pasted materials that were not published, but they are actually in the website. I mean, you can capture them from AI. So my suggestion to you is to be careful on all of them,
So at this stage, I like to invite our chair of the publication committee he can share his experience when he was working. He's a very big team. A lot of the members were there. So I'd like to invite the chair of the publication committee. Can you share your experience when you work for the conference proceedings, particularly the full papers proceedings, please? Because we are facing this issue, the formatting issue is very critical issue. And you know the renowned professor, the name is there, but they don't know how they can do this one. So that means they have to understand the quality. So please, Dr. Soil Radha, sir.
I'm sorry, at UM, proceedings does not give you any marks at UM, I'm sorry.
Okay, sir, thank you so much for giving me the chance to say something regarding the submissions of this conference. So we got lots of submissions, and as me and my team were working for synchronizing the paper, for sending the papers to the reviewers, getting the reviewers' comments and accommodating all these things, we saw lots of papers did not follow the guidelines given by ICVTM team. They did not follow the referencing style. Even they don't have the minimum understanding of how to cite the papers, and also grammatical mistakes. The title does not reflect the contents of the paper. Lots of issues are there. Then we the team sat together several times, so we prepared a list of things so that on which we should focus, so that we can at least maintain the minimum standard of the proceedings.
Thank you, sir.
And we the team members sat together several times to synchronize everything, and it took lots of time to do that. Anyway, sir, I have a question in my mind.
No, we'd like to take your question later on because we have some few students.
Okay,
they have a
okay,
question.
thank you.
Before we have one small discussion on this one. What is the process of getting the articles published? So I'd like to invite Professor Jonathan to continue this one, please.
This is really from one of the publications that is really how to get published, okay? And the purpose of this is just to show you that it's not a straight line process. In your mind, I've submitted the paper, what the heck have they been doing with it, okay? So if you look at your action here is just 1 to 2, and then you don't see anything behind, okay? And there is a lot of things that go through. What I will do with the next slide is to actually then say to you that if you have rejections, is not necessarily a bad thing, but I'm always very concerned with the mental health. If you think it's just going to be easy sailing and you hit a brick wall, then you start struggling for no reason, okay? But really this was just to show you that, and later on we'll talk a little bit about this, where you go from Eureka, my paper has been submitted, to, you know, heaven help me, paper has been rejected, okay? So Dr. Maniam, do you have anything to add on no? Okay, if we can perhaps take the questions from, I think there were 2 ladies that were fanatically waving. Okay.
So please, who is the one? First one? Raise the hand, please. Microphone, please. Microphone, please. Thank you. Please, you mention your identification at first, then you can ask the question. Please.
Hello, I'm Tasfia Akhtar, a recent undergraduate. I've recently completed my Bachelor's of Science in Economics from Independent University, Bangladesh. So while publishing my paper and a few other papers under projects, we have gone through few rejections. So from that, I don't know if it's a rumor or it is unconventionally said all the time that affiliations matter. But I really want to know, now that we have an opportunity to ask you guys directly, so do affiliations really matter? Is it really hard to get through good index journals from countries like Bangladesh, or universities from little middle income or low income countries like Bangladesh? And I have another to add, if I get the chance, is we like when it goes to the desk, and is our papers actually been read? Or like, we often, when we get rejection emails, we do get some emails do give specific comments on why it is rejected, but we often get a general comment that aims and scopes is not matched. But however, we go through the aims and scope million times, we mash through the themes of our papers and the aims and scope of the journal. So why do we get such comments?
Thank you so much. I'd like to start in that way, then I'll go to our panelists. You know that the editor board members or editor-in-chief, they have a lot of responsibilities. So they don't have enough time to review a full paper. So how they will start? They will start at first by your abstract. And they like to ensure the one thing is that your academic writing style is very important, academic writing. Our verbal English or the written English, regular written English and academic writing are the same. Secondly, they like to check whether you have the message, whether you can express your findings properly. They like to confirm what is the main findings. And if this is the main finding, how these findings could add the contribution. So you said the term is the contribution of the paper. If you can show your contribution within one line, in the abstract, the last line, then you can ensure you that if it's the society contribution, then you can ensure you can get the own confirmation in your mind. At least it should be the accept with the major correction. But if there is no contribution, then if you cannot mention your findings properly, then there is a huge restriction to accept the paper. So I'd like to go back to our panelists now.
Yeah,
please.
thank you, Prof. You know, I'm looking at her, she's still smiling. That means she's not demotivated, she's still motivated. Keep the motivation going, all right? 2 questions asked. Do they look at which country you come from? As Prof mentioned, it's blind review. Normally they don't know who you are, right? I've heard this as well from other colleagues. They may only know the result is from Bangladesh, but I don't think that is a issue that you should worry, right? So that's number 1. Number 2, you asked about desk rejection, right? The fact it is rejected at that level, they don't want to spend their time and resources to read the entire paper, right? If it is good paper, they may reject and give you good comments for you to improve. But if you don't fulfill basic requirements, right, they don't even take trouble to comment, because it's about our attitude, right? As an author, we don't have the right attitude to check the scope, the guidelines. When you don't do that, no, I get very upset when I see papers and I reject the papers. I get very upset because as an author, you're not even serious about, you know, putting your figures in one page, tables in one page. That shows you're not serious. And then why must I be serious spending my time reading your journal? And our journal don't charge, there's no APC, there's no article processing cost. So we don't want to waste our time because you're not serious. That is my take on that.
I'd like to see the other side of this approach. I like the fact that you remain confident that for some reason it could have been rejected because your affiliation is Bangladesh. It's possible. But my feeling is you should have a team. You say you work in a project team. Go through the paper, all 4 of you. Go through seriously and ask yourself if indeed the paper was properly read, justice was done, delivered to the paper. I think that's what you should do. I've had students like that who in the first time rejected, but they subsequently with the motivation went to better journals and got them published. And I remember this guy in the 3, I can't remember his name. He says his paper was rejected, but because of the position he took, and he subsequently published in a better journal, you know, he mentions the name as well. So I'm telling you, you could do those things, but you don't have to go that far to say impair someone. That you don't have to do, but you have to build your confidence when you see a rejection. But I often like rigorous comments because it helps me. Eventually people read the paper. I want to see that it doesn't have that many flaws and it's actually contributing. I like that very much. In fact, I myself, my first paper, submitted to Cambridge Journal of Economics. One referee gave me really excellent review about it and said this paper must be published with these corrections. Another one, without any reason, say rejected it. Doesn't meet the standards of the journals. Fortunately, the subsequent one who made the decision to support it actually accepted that too. So I felt that the first one that gave me a lot of comments made me change quite a few things. I was so happy that I made those changes. Now I believe that I have a more confident paper because of those comments rather than the way I submitted it.
If I could maybe just turn it around and say, yeah, there's lots of rhetoric, thousands of reasons. Maybe the editor-in-chief, whoever rejected the paper, doesn't like you, right? The fact of the matter is, you're focused on what you have no influence on, okay? So going forward, my advice to you is focus on what you can do. The first thing is, once you've constructed a paper, before you submit it to a journal, okay, is to actually then find a critical friend who is happy to read your paper and tell you what is good or bad, you know, or what things you might need to do, without them saying, you have to put my name on it, okay? I get a lot of students and a lot of researchers that send me a paper and ask me if I can have a look at it, and, oh, by the way, Prof, I can add you to the paper. And 9 out of 10 times, in fact, almost 10 out of 10 times, I tell them, I don't need another paper. I'm already at the end of my life cycle, okay? So you should do that, number one. So before submission, okay, who has looked at it? The other challenge you're going to get is, when the paper has been rejected, right, don't sit there and cry. You can, maybe for the first time, you know, but you should then think, if I don't have any comments coming in from the editor, I'm going to write to them. Dear editor, you know, thank you very much for, you know, making a decision on my paper, but I'm a young researcher, you know, could you perhaps give me some advice on how I can improve the paper, okay? A lot of the times, some journals, and even like with my own journal, sometimes the paper is so bad, you know, it's like cracking, not another paper on COVID. Do you know how many papers have been written on COVID-19? Okay, it's almost like COVID has been lasting for the last 20 years, okay? So a lot of those things you can do, and actually signaling yourself, okay? The other thing you can do is volunteer to be a reviewer for the journal. Then you get to see what the journal's papers are like, okay? Apart from you reading the paper itself, you know, reading the journal itself. And I'll give you one trick, okay? One of the things I do when a paper comes in, apart from the abstract, and because I get to see who the affiliated writers are, okay? And that's how we then flag up, okay? This is not another paper by Henry Wong, you know? This is now the 15th paper, okay? What we also look at is, do you cite this journal that you're submitting to? Why are you writing this wonderful paper for this journal, okay? Has there been other papers from, for example, my journal that has been published, okay? Quite often I get the author's letter saying this is a very important paper, blah, 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 you know, rocket science. And then I look at the paper to find out, so how many papers from my journal have you cited or have you used? And normally it's 0. And what does that tells me? Okay, that you might have been submitting this paper to another 3 or 4 journals. Okay, so my advice is think about what you can do before you submit. Okay, and then if you get a rejection, write to the editor. What's the worst case? They say, I don't want to engage with you, but you already know that they've rejected your paper. Okay, I hope that's helpful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll take 2 more questions. Before that, I'd like to open the another one issue. You know that nowadays a lot of industry-driven research. So it could be the case study-based research. So if you look very carefully, you can search the Walmart. If you see, you can see the Tesco, how many papers they have. Even if you think about the McDonald's, you can check how many papers, how many case studies are there. Unfortunately, our country, Bangladesh, in the last evening academic industry discussion, we also discussed about this issue. That how we can work on the industry. So industry-driven research, it could be based on the case study. So you can think that case study on the Roima Froze, case study in the, suppose the Apex, case study in the ACI, case study in the Monem Group Limited. So based on that, we can publish the paper as well. It is possible. So I like to now open the floor to the our audiences that do you have any interest, particularly the students, you like to work on the case study, and then you can ask the one question regarding the case study, how can you contribute the case study? Because nowadays even the Emerald, they have the case study issues. So they are published this kind of case study. Maybe it will add some values to our country, to our industry contribution as well. Thank you. I'd like to open the floor, please. We got the few.
Hi, I'm Khadija, and it was a pretty insightful session. I'm a recent econ grad, and my question to this panel is, AI is being hugely accepted, and the use of Kling AI VEO and Google AI tools is overwhelming, and it has been overwhelmingly accepted internationally as well. So one of the qualities of academicians and researchers are how beautifully they honored their linguistic skills, and they jot their literature review in a very nice way. So what if AI has been accepted in academia, and what will the future of academicians like us, who are very good at linguistic skills? My second question is, there is a saying in paper rejection and acceptance that a good rejection is better than acceptance. So from an editorial point of view, what is the one thing that defines a good rejection, and how do we know that we might take a second chance as writers? Thank you.
Okay, we'll take the two more questions and then we'll come to the panelists one by one. These two, right? Yeah, please. This one and this one, last one. And we'll come to you. Okay? One round. Now, go to the him at first. Oh, you can do, please.
I'm Dr. Firdaus Salihin. I'm the co-editor of Taylor and Francis USA. I'm also in the editorial board member of IGSC UK and some US journals. I'm also a reviewer for a journal and conference paper of IEM. Whenever we are reviewing papers, we see that it's not the country, not only in Bangladesh, irrespective of the country, the researchers have serious drawbacks in research methodology part. So I am asking on behalf of the students, let's say if I would like to publish a high quality journal in the Q1 index, whether it is Scopus or Web of Science, so share us something that what are the things we need to consider if there are some checklists so that we can really make sure that we submit the paper and make it quality and it will be accepted. Thank you.
Thank you. Last one question, please.
Hello, I'm a student from Independent University Bangladesh, Department of Economics. So I would like to ask, as a student, when choosing a topic, so should we focus more on the novelty or the contribution, or should we focus more on the rigorous methodology? Sometimes we had to trade off, so which one should we focus more?
Professor Rajarashia, you can start from you.
It all depends on your research questions. And your research questions also begin from the problem you're tackling. And that's how you go in the sequence, the value chain of research, before you get to the analytic techniques, where the question of rigor doesn't come from whether you chose a frontier quantitative model or whether you simply took a gendered approach, for example, that can be normative. Rigor is defined by the scholars. If you are, most of the time sociologists tend to take that sort of approach because the notion that they have is that most of the time people are crunching numbers with quantitative work, and I myself, having gone through the process today, believe that too. So where it's necessary, where large data sets, yes, I work on quantitative methods, only to explain certain things. If you look at the book I mentioned just now, they are all used that way. They don't explain or establish a theory as such. We end up taking that point and then saying that this is how it should be, the evidence beyond all questions, because it's significant at 1% level, it should be accepted. The model itself developed in such a way, it makes sense. But again, it should not overrule an intuitive notion that this is what happens, whether you're taking a structural equation modeling approach with mediation and moderation, even though I'm quite skeptical about using cross-sectional analysis. James Saxman, another Nobel laureate, makes that case. He seems to claim that you can establish causation through cross-sectional analysis. My own feeling, the same thing with Granger causality tests. I have gone through those days we used to do Monte Carlo experiments. You extend a series, causation changes. And most of the time, we have all these new techniques and so on. After 10 years, they become obsolete.
I think there are maybe 2 or 3 questions that have similarity, okay? So what do you focus on when you are submitting the paper? I would say on all of them, you know, don't choose. These are the 3 things that I've shared with you, okay, that we've shared with you and what the editorial expectations are. We are looking at contribution, whether it's novel or it's significant or it's earth-shattering. We're not bothered as long as it's clearly well defined and supported by either evidence or theory or both. We also look at your methodological approach. If you use the wrong method, then you have invalidated the response, i.e. the answer doesn't make sense, okay? A bit like my methodology, I'm going to look at women in management, and I only interview men. There's not going to be an unbiased response, okay? Then you've got the rhetoric consideration. What is the theory? You know, what is really very interesting is a lot of the papers that do get rejected, even when they are good and they meet the other criteria, there is no theory in there. So how do we then judge? Okay, I think earlier there was a question about what is a good paper. Okay, a good paper is one that gets the reader interested, thinks about what is basically happening, and motivates them to either go and write another paper and rebut it, okay, or it is actually being used, okay. The citation of some of the papers is really important. I recently had a paper that was published in one of the journals. There was a group of us, there was 19 academics that got together to write, you know, it was really a crazy paper. Within 3 months, we had 12,000 citations. You know, for me, that was like winning the Nobel Peace Prize and the lottery, okay? So what I would basically say is that, you know, we have very limited time. I've actually already arm-twisted Professor Habib that maybe I can run, you know, a session very specifically about just how to get published, okay? So, Dr. Mani.
But very quickly, you know, I like that question asked by the first person. Rejection better than acceptance, yeah. If a good journal rejects you and they give you suggestions and comments, in fact, some journals do suggest to you which journal you can go to. You know, that is a good news, right? Good news. Then you publishing it in a you know, unknown journal where you don't get citation. End of the day, for me personally, a good journal is I get citations because I do not want my work go unnoticed. My work must be read by the community, right? Let me just end with this nice phrase. A great paper doesn't just report findings. It tells a story that changes how others think. So your paper must motivate others to read and start something from that, you know, from your paper. That's where I think I've made some contribution. Otherwise, there is no, you know, the impact must be there. I do not want to just publish papers for sake of publishing, you know, publish or perish. I don't really believe in that. Maybe when I was young at that level, now I think I want to make an impact. People must benefit from a paper. Otherwise, I do not want to publish a paper, right? So that is my response, quick response there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have sat in some committees for big prizes. We'll have to ask ourselves what impact means. Most of the time, the impact that I saw, including the nomination, the first round nomination of Amartya Sen, I was involved in it, or for that matter, a few others. My point is, the first thing they look for is what extension have you made to knowledge. That's the most important criteria they're given to me. Second, the impact to society, not the citations though. I'm just making the point that I observed, including the other prizes for which I was selected to evaluate, including the Celso Furtado Prize by the World Academy of Science or even the Merdeka Prize in Malaysia. Thank you.
Today you notice that we got a lot of term like impactful research. You understand impact. You have to create the impactful research findings, and you have to contribute so that the audiences, so you are assuming that they have to get something from your findings. If it is an industry-driven findings, then you can we can ensure that there is a huge possibility paper must be accepted. So ultimately, our contribution should goes to the society, should goes to the industry. It is not like the academic research, it's not like the academic research, academic findings. So we have to make sure this kind of quality you have to ensure in our paper. I believe that a lot of questions you have, a lot of observation you have, that discussion we can continue overnight. We cannot find out any solution, but we should do this kind of discussion. So we are going to stop now, but I believe that our panelists, they will be roaming around. So you have any further question, feel free to chat with them. We can discuss and sharing with others as well. So that's all from our side. Thank you so much.